In 2017, the Google DeepMind team set out to solve chess. Well, not quite. They created an engine called AlphaZero, which they trained using AI, and it was better than any other engine ever created. AlphaZero was trained in a very strange way. It played 44 million games against itself, learning from each one. They didn't give it any opening theory, any chess principles, or anything of that nature. It had to learn only from playing itself. What's also interesting is AlphaZero doesn't even evaluate positions like other engines. Stockfish gives you a plus score, i.e. in pawns. How likely you are to win, +1's up one pawn, +5 is up a rook, that sort of valuation. AlphaZero evaluates positions basically on percentage of winning or losing, so any given position with a move will increase its chance of victory or decrease it. That's how it plays moves. So this game is one of AlphaZero's immortal games, and the finish is just absolutely stunning. So even though AlphaZero is known to play quite human-like, the moves are not quite human, so I might be going through a little bit more quickly because there is a little bit of shuffling that goes on. So we see knight f3, so the engines were programmed to play certain openings. This was back in 2017, and yes, this is all theory, as explained by the book Moves. So I'll go through this because it wasn't AlphaZero playing. And of course, the analysis here is done by Stockfish, so sometimes it'll say AlphaZero has done a bad move or itself's done a bad move, because also this is our Stockfish on a much lower depth than the engines that are involved in making this game. So then we see bishop e7 by Stockfish, queen f5 by AlphaZero, a very interesting move. So I think the queen is quite strategically well placed on c2. AlphaZero decides to bring it into the game and thinks that it has a much better chance trying to pester this knight, and also has a sort of long-term hopes of maybe pressuring black's king and maybe making it a bit more difficult for him to castle. So then we see knight f6 and then e4 played by AlphaZero, trying to gain some central space as black hasn't taken much of the centre yet. So we see g6 played by Stockfish just to get that queen out of there. AlphaZero retreats its queen, and here AlphaZero had an idea after castles. It goes e5, kicking this knight, and it's fine. It thinks, okay, I'll move my queen, and it basically argues that this knight over here on h5 is not very useful, and it's going to struggle to get back into the game because obviously it can't go to f6. It's going to have to go somewhere like g7. And this is weird. Like the way these engines see the game, they don't see pieces, squares. It doesn't see material. It doesn't see central control. The way they see the squares is like, if I can block a square, that's a very important thing, or if I can get this, like the way these pieces move out of the game, it's going to go for that. So just really interesting to see how these engines play these sort of games. So we see rook e8 played by Stockfish, and then knight c3 by AlphaZero. Queen b8 played by Stockfish, trying to target this pawn. Obviously not a move you'd ever see a human play, because humans don't really want to have their rooks disconnected. You're always told to connect your rook as a beginner. And then we will see knight d5 by AlphaZero, maybe trying to put a little bit of pressure on this bishop. Of course, this pawn isn't actually getting sacrificed because there's a long line of captures at the end of it. They lose this bishop, so you can take here and then take that bishop in the corner. I won't go into that line, but rest assured this pawn is not hung by AlphaZero. Bishop f8 played by Stockfish, getting the rook into the game. And the bishop's quite happy on f8. It looks like a very awkward square, but maybe it can go to g6. Maybe it can just see the scope. And it's never going to be attacked on f8. You can't lose your bishop pair, or the bishop's not going to face much pestering from these knights or the pawns. So we see bishop f4, lining up an X around this queen, and then AlphaZero just goes queen c8. Now Stockfish, just moves its queen to c8. Now it's a bit weird, you can see the rooks aren't connected, the queen's had to move. You can always see AlphaZero building a little bit of advantage here. He's got more central control, its pieces are a bit better positioned, like this knight's a bit bad. This bishop, although safe, is slightly questionable, but who am I to say? I mean, these engines are playing echelons above what any human can ever hope to achieve. So we see h3 by AlphaZero. AlphaZero absolutely loves giving its king lots of squares to go to. Maybe it's going to push h4, h5, h6 later on, but it just loves having extra squares for its king. A mobile king is a happy king according to AlphaZero. So we see knight e7 played by Stockfish, just trying to dislodge this knight. It's trying to clarify the centre, thinking, damn, this AlphaZero bot has so much control. If I can try and liquidate, maybe I can hope to get this bishop into the game, because obviously bishops like open positions. And right now, AlphaZero is sort of closing it down. So we see knight e3 played by AlphaZero, just retreating that knight. Doesn't want to trade, doesn't want to give out something way more useful in this middle game. So we see bishop to c6, very engine type move. Creeping move, just moves the bishop one square better, arguing that bishop is now a little bit better with extra scope. So yeah, very engine move there, a little bit hard to explain. So we see rook to d6, another sort of engine-y move. Of course, these are two engines playing, so we're going to be seeing a lot of that, as I said. But obviously just jamming the rook down the throat of Stockfish, saying, I'm going to put my pieces right into your position, discombobulate your pieces, and block your sort of development with my rook. So we see knight g7. Okay, as I said, that knight is going to have to go to that square, otherwise it's simply not in the game. Boom. Rook f6. I mean, when have you seen a move like this? The rook is just sitting on black's position. How is he ever going to get out? Look at these knights. They just look absolutely stupid. AlphaZero is bullying Stockfish. Queen to b7 played by Stockfish gives itself an inaccuracy here. I'm sure queen to b7 is not too bad a move. Just a low depth Stockfish not liking this. And then bishop to h6 is best from AlphaZero. The idea is you're going to put some pressure on this knight on g7 and also maybe exchange this dark squared bishop, and these dark squares are just going to be owned by white. Black doesn't ever have anything. If the queen is so far over here, these dark squares are only going to be controlled by white, and around black's king is quite a dangerous arrangement for black to have. So we see knight d5 played by Stockfish, finally getting a piece into the game. Knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, and then rook d1. AlphaZero finally brings its last piece into the game. Knight e6 played by Stockfish. Another thing to note actually is that Stockfish 15.1 is analysing this game, and this game was played in 2017, so the Stockfish will have come quite a long way since this game was played, but still not quite at the echelon of AlphaZero, I'd probably argue. Bishop takes f8, and then we see rook takes f8. Queen h4 played by AlphaZero. Stockfish calling it a mistake, quite ironic considering the Stockfish lost this game, and the idea is just to sort of target this queen side. But again, it's kind of hard to explain some of these moves because obviously the idea is they're seeing parrying threats that even the top grandmasters in the world have probably struggled to see. It's quite cryptic sometimes. So we see bishop back to c6. I mean, what is going on? Stockfish doesn't even know what to do. Queen h6 played by AlphaZero, again going in. I mean, ignore it, it says it's a mistake, it's obviously not. Rook ae8, bringing the final rook into the game, and then you just see, again, what is Stockfish doing? Its king is just cocooned by its own pieces, just getting absolutely brutalized here, but obviously nothing can creep from AlphaZero. But it's going to creep in, it's going to swarm his position, it's going to squeeze Stockfish. You're going to see this. Rook d6. Again, another rook on this d6 square, bringing its rooks, stuffing them down Stockfish's throat, thinking, how are you even going to move? What are you going to do? Trade all your pieces. I own everything. AlphaZero is sitting on Stockfish's position. Bishop takes f3. Bishop takes f3. Of course it captures, but it's basically all it could do. Queen a6. Trying to get some counterplay. Desperately trying to get something. You attack this pawn. Maybe you're going to check on the back rank. What are you really doing though? You see h4. AlphaZero, don't care. Take my pawns. All the action is happening on your king side. Queen a5. Now he's going to get on the back rank. Does AlphaZero care? I mean, again, look. Loves an open king. His king's open. He's happy about this. Says, go ahead, take my pawns. Stockfish doesn't even take. Doesn't take the pawns. Rook d1. Protect the back rank. c4. Rook d5. Again, rook back in the middle of the fray. AlphaZero say, go on, check me. Do the check. It's not going to do anything. Why would I even care? Queen e1 check. King g2. The king is safe. c3. Take that. Queen takes c3. Now even if he sacrifices all his pawns on the queen side, there's only one left. And all the attacks happening on the king side. I mean, how are you going to address this? This bishop is going to be so much better than this knight in the endgame as well, because with these pieces so far apart and all these pawns spread apart, the knight is going to struggle to sort of gallop across and try and take everything. So we see h5. Stockfish knocking on the door. Hello, anyone home? Stockfish doesn't answer. Rook e7. Covering up, trying to defend. In the corner. The king just cocooned by his own pieces. Bishop d1. Going to probably reroute the bishop to b7 or maybe b3, targeting that f7 pawn. Queen e1 and then bishop b3. There we go. The pool shot. Anatoly Karpov type move. Bishop's back to the edge of the board to go forward and get a better scope. Rook d8. Defending the pawn. Rook f3. AlphaZero doesn't care about material. Again, it cares only about positions and chance of winning and losing. It's not going to grab a pawn if it doesn't benefit its position absolutely. And AlphaZero is also known to sacrifice material for very long-term positional gain. It doesn't just calculate out, oh, in 5 moves I'll win my rook back. No, it doesn't see material. It thinks, if I can sacrifice this and improve my position by a tiny margin, it would sacrifice every piece to improve the position of its pawns if it deemed that as winning enough. Queen e4. Touching both rooks. Asking AlphaZero a question, what do you actually want here? I mean, you've been pressuring me for a long time, but where's your advantage? Queen d2, Queen g4, a little bit of shuffling, Bishop d1, Queen e4, h6. Now look at this. A key square in front of the king is now controlled. Of course, AlphaZero is not going to take and take back, and its advantage is sort of diluted. Every piece off the board is less pressure on black's king. So knight c7 threatens the rook. The rook simply slides up. Again, AlphaZero just pressuring. These pawns can't even move. How does Stockfish progress in this position? Knight e6, getting knight sort of back in the game. Bishop b3 again, targeting the f7 pawn, which actually now is quite weak. Queen takes e5, AlphaZero just sacrifices the pawn, doesn't even care. Rook d5, queen h8. Now, that queen is in an awful position. I mean, what is even going on? How is queen h8 the best move seen by Stockfish on a very high depth? Queen b4, hitting the rook. Knight c5, and here comes a brilliance from AlphaZero. Brilliant move by Stockfish. Rook takes c5, sacrificing the exchange for what? What could AlphaZero possibly gain? You're about to see. Bishop takes c5, queen h4 hitting the rook. Rook has to move, defend the rook. Rook f6. This queen, the queen is completely cocooned. The queen is entombed in the corner of the board. And now from this point onwards, yes, AlphaZero lost the exchange and is down a pawn. But Stockfish is down a queen. This queen is never going to get back in the game. Rook f8. No one can understand why Stockfish played this move. There's some slight pressure on f7, but the pawn's getting tickled. It's defended well. Rook f8 is just a passive move, doesn't improve black's position at all. Even most humans can see this move is not very good for Stockfish. I guess it really couldn't think of anything to do because Stockfish doesn't know what engine it values material. It doesn't want to sacrifice its queen, even though that queen is never getting out. Because you think, well, move the rook, move the king, get the queen out. Simple. Well, it's not that simple. What are you going to do? Get your queen out and then get your king out and start getting harassed and maybe even checkmated by all of white's very active pieces. It's not going to happen. Queen f4. a5. g4. Now, AlphaZero prepares to get out the hammer and nails and put the final nail in the coffin of black's queen. d5. Bishop takes d5. Takes that pawn. It's only move Stockfish had really that it didn't evaluate is losing on the spot. Just loses the pawn. Rook d7. Bishop c4. Just slides the bishop back. Also halts the progress of that c5 pawn. Just beautiful chess. a4. g5 played now is the final nail in the coffin of black's queen. How are you ever getting that queen out? It's just brutal. When have you ever even seen a queen completely locked away? Like this queen is... It's just gone. How is it? It's just not getting anything like this. When have you ever seen anything like this? Black is down a queen but has a queen on the board. You only see this in like weird compositions where there's like pawn blocks and everywhere. Like positions that beat engines, like, you know, when there's 20 queens locked on the back rank and Stockfish will say advantage but it'll be a draw, something silly like that. See a3, queen f3. I mean, again, how is black can't get this queen out? All you got is a rook. You're down a queen but your queen's still on the board. It's just amazing. Rook c7, queen takes a3, queen takes f6. Finally Stockfish has had enough. Thinks, get my queen out of here. He can't. Sacrifices it for the rook, realizes the queen is no better than that rook blocking it. G takes f6. And then rook fc8. Now you've got two rooks versus queen and bishop. Now 2 rooks versus queen can be quite even. Obviously, of course, always depends on the position, but the 2 rooks, especially if they're connected like this, can do pretty well. 2 rooks versus queen and bishop, you're not going to win that one because the bishop can overpower or help the queen power through both the rooks. That's just winning for white. So we see queen d3, rook f8, and queen d6, and then rook back to rook fc8, and after a4, Stockfish resigned the game. I guess they programmed Stockfish to resign the game after it was had an evaluation against it of +5, and in this position Stockfish resigned because it simply lost its queen and is in a queen down endgame. Absolutely brutal play. I mean, when have you ever seen anything like that? Down a queen, queen still on the board, queen getting trapped, but not by pieces. The queen wasn't even attacked. It was just locked away. An absolutely beautiful game by AlphaZero, showing how far we can really go with chess. And if you enjoyed that video, there should be another video popping up now that YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy the most, so probably good to give that one a watch. Maybe leave a comment and subscribe as well. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.